Good morning, and welcome to Planet Leadville for Wednesday, July 8th, 2026. As the Willow fire continues to take center stage in Lake County, last night's community meeting presented more questions. Stay tuned for that upcoming report. But first up, it's the weather. While yesterday's scattered rainstorms were a welcome sigh of relief, it will take more than that for Leadville to see any significant changes in its current drought or wildfire conditions. Today's forecast from the National Weather Service calls for 30% chance of showers and thunderstorms, mainly after 4 p.m. Skies will be mostly sunny, with a high near 72. Light and variable winds becoming west, northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour in the morning. Tonight's forecast calls for chance of showers and thunderstorms before 9 p.m., then a slight chance of showers between 9 p.m. and midnight. Skies will be partly cloudy, with a low around 42. West, northwest winds at 5 to 10 miles per hour becoming light and variable in the evening. Chance of precipitation is 30%. Let's hope that rain keeps reaching the ground. In Willow fire news, last night, a second community meeting was held by local leaders and the fire management team. Here's Planet Leadville's report with the highlights.
Last night's community meeting literally took center stage in the Lake County High School auditorium, as local leaders and fire management presented the latest information regarding the incident. While a majority of the updates appeared to be an encore performance, a reiteration of information already available through a number of online portals and platforms. What was coming through the smoke and haze were growing concerns from residents about how fire suppression is being managed. Let's check in on that portion of the discussion. The first clip is from the initial July 2nd meeting, followed up by last night's more detailed rebuttal from an audience member. And lastly, if you're wondering what the plan is for all the slash piles that are scattered for miles throughout the Willow fire area, the team answers that question.
Looks like we got one up here that I can get myself around.
To what extent has the fact that this fire is in designated wilderness impacted suppression efforts?
So one of the things is it's very remote and very unforgiving terrain, and so we have to manage the access to that area. We have to manage, do we have the right resources for that? Like, do we have the right medical in case we have an accident out there? Are we able to get them out of there? Also, there are some areas where we may enter the wilderness and we will use minimum suppression tactics so we're not impacting the land. A lot of that just has to do with how remote it is and the amount of resources that we currently have. And right now, we're focusing the resources that we have on the structures themselves. That's where the values are right now. The values that we were given were the houses, the community, the watershed, so that we can try to preserve that drinking water and those transmission lines. And so the wilderness, while it's not low priority, with the amount of resources that we currently have, we're prioritizing the other values at risk first. Like, that's just what we have the resources for currently. Did you want to touch on that anymore?
Thanks, Nick. From a wilderness perspective, as Nick mentioned, the first thing that we're trying to account for is firefighter safety and how do we safely engage this. Wilderness is remote, typically, in a lot of cases by nature, but in this case, as we've seen elsewhere, even in non-wilderness areas, we have challenges, terrain challenges primarily, with engaging fires. And I'll draw on an example from Interlochen, where we had a lot of hotshot crews on that fire, and we weren't able to do quite as much as we would have wanted to do, mainly with equipment and such, because of the location of that fire presented other challenges in other ways. So wilderness is a factor, but in terms of, it's a factor because of remoteness and terrain primarily. So hopefully that helps.
Okay, so questions.
Thank you. I put a lot of thought into this, so I wrote out my question. It's 3 short paragraphs. Our small community is suffering emotionally from the fear of evacuation and fire loss, physically from breathing unhealthy air due to the smoke, and economically from the loss of summer income, compounded by our loss of winter income. Many of us are questioning why you don't just put out the fire. Leadville is resilient, but this event is very painful for all of us. At last week's community meeting, an opportunity was not taken when a citizen asked about the wilderness. We could have been educated about the Wilderness Act and the federal restrictions that limit fire control in designated wilderness, like our Mount Massive wilderness, where the Willow fire is mostly located. Now, I ask for discussion of the San Isabel National Forest Potential Operational Delineation, POD. In essence, a POD enables the Forest Service to allow wildfire to burn to improve the long-term health of our forests. But how are you weighing the emotional, physical, and economic pain of Leadville and its citizens against the well-being of the forest and the potential risk from a loss of control? If you are following a POD, then I may assume that you are confident about your efforts to achieve both forest management and community protection. Discussing this could help reduce my anxiety. Thank you.
Hey, appreciate the question, and I just would like to stress this is 100%, 100, full suppression fire. You saw the videos that Jim showed there of the fire behavior when this fire started, and some of the big runs that it made, and you can't be directly up to the side of the fire, fighting fire that way. We've come down to the most advantageous places for firefighter safety based off analytics, the highest probability of success with the lowest risk to the responders out there. As conditions change, Jim talked about a little bit ago, you see up there the fire doesn't look very active now. In a couple days from now, that could be just like it was when the fire first started. If conditions stay the same, then our strategy and tactics will adapt to those changing conditions as well. And we can talk a little later after this more in depth, but I do appreciate the question. Thank you.
Looks like we're passing a mic. Here we go.
I think this question might be for Nick. In a number of the pre-evac zones, such as back Half Moon Creek and on County Road 36, which is, I think, in Division Papa, there are tremendous slash piles, and I'd like to know what you're doing to protect those or address that.
I don't think so. So there's slash piles out there in a lot of places. One of the things that we're doing is we're running pumps from tanks, hose, sprinklers to some of those. If it looks like it's going to damage property, if it's close to houses, things like that. Right now, just on that side of the world, we've got over 70 pumps out there and over 7,000 feet of hose out there. And so that's one of the things that they're doing is putting sprinklers on those wood piles if it's in an area that's going to damage private property, like houses, things like that. We're doing our best to move some of those larger piles. I know like in Half Moon Creek, they're doing that. They're trying to move some of those larger piles. And I know some of those piles up in that Papa area, same thing. We're just trying to protect it. If it's near somebody's structure, we're going to do something like that, put sprinklers on it or something. Does that answer your question, I hope?
But as residents deal with the frustration of the unknown, wondering exactly what will remain once the fire is contained and the smoke clears, one of last night's speakers displayed several pictures worth 1,000 words. Because for trail lovers and fans of the Leadville National Fish Hatchery, they didn't need to be told what values at risk they were watching being consumed by the Willow fire. It was clear that the flames had reached the edge of the beloved evergreen lakes. Here's Jim King, a fire behavior analyst with the Southwest CIMT4 with his report.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jim King. I'm the fire behavior analyst for Team 4. The people who were here a couple days ago, as Nick mentioned, I spent some time in Arizona just out of curiosity. I looked at the last week of relative humidity down in Arizona in the desert, how dry the air is, and compared it to our last week here. And there are multiple days here that we were, in fact, drier than the deserts of Arizona. And that is hard to wrap your head around from a fire behavior standpoint at the very least. I covered fuels at the last public meeting. I'll just keep it brief. They're dry. You saw what Kurt put out. All fuels are available. All vegetation is available right now. It's just a matter of how much is out there and how it's arranged is whether it will burn or not. I've got a couple pictures here that I'll show. This first picture here, apologies if you can't see it in the back, but this first picture here is on Division Papa. Those are the set of power lines that are on the north flank of this fire. This is firing out, trying to provide low-intensity fire to help secure the main fire and protect those values at risk of those power lines. So this is what some fire behavior, you might have been able to see this from town. This is what it looks like if you could get up close. The next slide we have, this is from Division Romeo. This is behind the fish hatchery. Again, this was firing operations to bring the main fire out to holding features that we have at a time and a place that's advantageous for us and the ability to control the fire. And you can see fire on the ground, the canopy still intact above. So low intensity fire behind the hatchery. This is from the night prior to that, just a little bit further to the east. Again, behind the hatchery, getting fire out. The holding feature is on the left-hand side, kind of where the fire starts. And then this video right here is from kind of the south aspect of Twin Mounds from a couple days ago. And a good description of this would be active single and group tree torching. Flame lengths from the ground to the canopy plus, probably 80 to 100 feet. And a fire like this would probably throw spots, 0.2 of a mile out in front of itself. A couple notable days of fire growth since we've last talked. The evening of 7/3, we had about a mile worth of fire spread that lined up with Rock Creek and came out towards the fish hatchery. And when that fire movement happened, it was that fire behavior that was happening. That mile spread happened in about 3 to 4 hours. And it had spotting, again, out about half a mile for that particular run. The other one you may or may not have seen because of all the other smoke, but on Independence Day, the 4th of July, we had about a 3-mile run that took the fire to kind of where it is now, down into the head of Willow Creek. And I don't have any pictures of that fire behavior, but you can try to picture it was about 1/4 to a half-mile wide. You would have had flame lengths 100 feet, maybe a little bit more than that. And it covered about 3 miles before it was all said and done. So that's the highlights of the fire behavior. Here's a couple takeaways before I turn it over to the last speaker. Kurt mentioned, a little bit of moisture. Historically, we'd be heading into monsoons. That's not happening anytime soon. If you do start to get moisture on this fire, I'm just going to give you a number to go by. If you get 1/10 of an inch of rain, that'll buy you about 1 day. That'll subdue fire behavior for a day, and then it'll dry right back out. So 1/10 of precip per day is what it buys you. So if you're lucky enough to get a 1/2 inch, and then it dries back out, you're going to be about 5 days before the fire starts to pick back up again. So that's a frame of reference there. And then I'll close. Hold on before I close. When this ends, I apologize to the people online, but I do have 8 or 10 additional videos of other fire behavior that we can play here in-house, and I can talk about what it is, where it is, et cetera, for those that are interested. Okay, in closing, you've heard multiple people say the word patience tonight. From a fire behavior perspective, I can't emphasize that term anymore. This fire is in a fuel type that is erratic, schizophrenic, you might say. It doesn't take much to set it off. When it does want to burn rapidly, it'll send spot fires out like we've witnessed. It's not theoretical. We've witnessed out to 0.8 of a mile on this fire. Okay, so that's very hard for operations to wrap their hands around. The hard thing is, as you've witnessed for a couple days, this fire is capable of sitting and not particularly moving much at all. And so it's easy from a community standpoint and understandable to say, well, why aren't you doing something? And then 3 days later, the switch can get toggled back on. The winds that Kurt talked about can toggle back on. We'll get alignment, and we'll get another mile spread. And even if we don't get a mile spread in the proximity of Willow Creek right now, the main fire edge is close enough that even a small 10, 20, 30-acre patch of fire is capable of putting embers out down into the valley bottom, down into the grass and sage, down into the valleys at risk. And so this fire is going to be here until measurable rain multiple days in a row happens. And that's not in the future anytime soon. So patience with the team, with future organizations, and patience with each other is going to be critical for the rest of the way. Thank you.
That wraps up today's report. Thanks for checking in to Planet Leadville.